All right. There are a whole bunch of ways that people are going to rip you off. And some of them you may not realize at this stage. And the first is they're going to waste your time. In the early days, as somebody interested in doing deal packaging, you're going to be thinking, oh, thank goodness, somebody wants to talk to me. They're going to be an investor. But as you get busier and busier, you're going to appreciate that time is a really important resource for you, and you cannot afford for your investors just to be wasting your time. So we've got two types of time wasters, really. We've got the people who are never going to join your group and buy deals from you, but are just like, let me suck your brain, let me take all your knowledge and let me go and do it for myself. How do you stop those people ripping off your time? You put in pay envelopes. So we used to run investor days and we always charged £20, in fact, £20 plus VAT, so it's 24 quid. And we did it on Eventbrite. So they had to register, they had to pay the money, because if somebody isn't even going to pay you 20 quid, they're surely not going to buy a deal from you. But if you're there going, hey, I'd love to talk to everybody because I want customers, especially in the early days before you're really rolling, they're going to be like, oh, let me pretend. And so by putting in a pay envelope and by putting them in a group, what I might term the kind of prima donna rip-offs of your time are less likely to approach, because they've got to put it in their diary. They're not just like, let me suck that person's brain. They've got to pay some money. They've got to turn up. I definitely found that when I put people in a group, they didn't rip off my time, even if they were never going to join. I certainly had a couple of experiences, and I remember one in particular, a guy, he's still in our industry, I never name names. He came to my house posing as if he was going to be an investor, and he wanted one-on-one time. He refused to come to the group. I was naive, it was very early. I spent a whole afternoon with the guy, and then he just flipped it out and ran his own deal packaging business. Now, I'm quite frank, I'm quite helpful to people. So if he just asked me for help, I'd have given him. But as it is, I'm like, that guy's a liar. He's a cheat. I think very bad thoughts of that human being, and I would never trust him. So the people who will never buy from you, you stop them ripping off your time by putting in a pay envelope and making them turn up in a group, not doing one-to-one. You only do one-to-one with your investors once they've come to your group, and then you're like, great, let's have a one-to-one now. The second time waster is people that are like, yeah, I definitely want to buy deals, but I'm still intending on wasting your time. Now, this could be because they mentally think they're going to buy deals, but end up not. You put a second pay envelope in, and that is, in order for you to get access to my deals, you're going to have to pay a membership fee. I started, and how naive and beautiful and sweet and cute was this? I started by charging people £100 for 100 deals. Like, what a bargain. And I measured everything, and I found that 38% of people spent the £100, which they could have spent on their wife or their husband going out for supper, but didn't buy deals. So I had 62% of people buying deals. So 62% of my time working with those investors, because once they're in their group, you're much more in a one-to-one conversation, was constructive. And almost 40% of my time and my team's time, and remember, I'm paying for them, was really unconstructive, because they wasted their money. They spent 100 quid, which really wasn't a barrier to entry for them. And they're like, yeah, now I've basically got free education from Susannah and team until she's done 100 deals, which took us about 2 years. What a waste of time, and what a rip-off of the most important resource I've got, time. And although if you haven't yet started a deal packaging business, you're like, Suze, when will you get to the money? And I will. I'm going to tell you now, this rip-off, this hidden rip-off, this subtle rip-off of your time, as well as the rip-off of your knowledge, but the time rip-off is the worst rip-off you can allow, okay? So don't allow it. So once I noticed that I had almost 38% of people didn't buy deals, but thought that they were now entitled to as many free conversations as possible, which technically in a way they were, I managed my diary more carefully. And I was basically like, these guys need to be buying deals before I'm going to be talking to them. But more importantly, I increased the pay envelope. So previously it was £100, and that didn't stop so many people. I increased it to £1,000 per year membership. Now that's going to make people hold up the horses and go, hang on a minute here. I'm only joining this group if I'm serious. I still had a small percentage of people not buying deals for whatever personal circumstances, but it meant that the biggest, baddest rip-off that you can get, your time rip-off, was really decreased. So I would encourage you, even if it feels weird, that you initially charge people to come to your investor days. and 20 quid Eventbrite works beautifully. And then you actually have quite a substantial pay envelope if you're serious about this, because you only want serious players. Your job is to get rid of tire kickers because they're going to clog up your system and they're going to rip off your time, which is your biggest rip off. Should we get onto the money now, shall we? Before we get to the money, you're like, Suze, get to the money. I just want to give you a broader context, because we've done so many deals, that there are more other things that are important not to be ripped off, as well as money. Money we're going to come on to next. Hold fire, we'll get there. The second rip-off that you're going to get, the first one was time, is reputation. Now, we had very little of this. I had, you need to be a member of the Property Ombudsman for your compliance, and we were a member of Property Redress Scheme, and we were a member of Property Ombudsman. I think they're really good, by the way. Their complaint procedure is really good, and their adjudication process is really good. We had one person take us to the Property Ombudsman, which I was fine with, because, you know, if we've done something wrong, no problem. We told her that the deal would be worth £235,000. It ended up being judged by Shawbrook as being worth £265,000. So you might ask yourself, why would she take you to the Property Ombudsman when the deal was 30 grand more than you said? Like, you have literally handed her 30 grand more than she expected in equity, not cash. Well, her beef was that it was near a railway line, and outside of the property, way down the street, it was Japanese knotweed. And her beef was that the first mortgage company she contacted said, we're not going to mortgage this property because way down the line, there's Japanese knotweed. I think she got mortgaged by the second company. So you can see the beef, but it was nothing to do with the property. It was like hundreds of meters away outside of the property, and you got 30 grand extra. So you just have to kind of shrug your shoulders in that one and follow the formal process. And actually, that's why I quite like the Property Ombudsman, because, well, they ruled in our favour, but also had we made a mistake, they would have ruled in her favour. So you've got kind of a fair adjudication. So ripping off your reputation on that case wasn't a problem. There's a fair adjudicator. The second part of ripping off your reputation, and again, we had very little of this, which was amazing considering how many deals we did, is online. Now, there's no fair adjudicator there. There's just like herd instinct. And we certainly had a very small amount of this, but it was interesting experience. And I'll give you an example of one, and I do feel a bit about it. Oh, I did. I don't care now. I just think the guy's a pillock. We had a chap who did a JV with another chap with whom I'm still friends and think the world of. And this other guy had nothing to do with it. This first guy did. They actually bought 2 properties, 2 flats from us. They made £90,000 profit. I'm just going to park that with you. They made £90,000 profit. And this guy decided, not my friend, but his JV partner, he decided to complain about the deal online, anonymously. Now, I'm not telling his name now because I think it's wrong to slag people off on social media. You go through your formal process. That's what it's there for. And I was fuming. And I just saw it pop up online, and I knew they'd had an amazing deal. At the time, they hadn't made the money yet, but they made 90,000 quid profit. And he was anonymously slagging me off. And then my friend, who was his JV partner, literally phoned me at that point and said, could we please put this, would you be okay, because you sourced the deal, because we renovated the deal, if we put this deal in for an award? And I had trouble not spitting my tea out. So social media, my experience is put back a kind of a fairly neutral response if you want to put a response, but basically you can't play chess with pigeons. So you decide, are you going to go legal on people? I generally haven't, but going forward, I always would do. So in the past, I chose not to. In the future, I always would. Are you going to put back a kind of neutral comment saying, we wish you well, however, it was an amazing deal? Or are you going to ignore them? And the only time I made a mistake, I put back a comment and I was very cross, it blew the thing up. So I wouldn't, if you're cross, definitely action, wedge, reaction. So far, we've covered reputation. One is a formal process. That's great. That's what your compliance is for. So don't worry about it. The other is social media. I would strongly suggest to you, as a deal packager, have a understanding of how you're going to do a social media anonymous or non-anonymous, untrue or true complaint online. And I would generally suggest that you involve a PR company, because you're going to be cross and upset and hurt and disappointed, especially when the geezer made 90 grand, the pillock. And so you're unlikely in that mental state to go to, the pillock made 90,000 quid. He annoys me. That's not going to make you seem like a reasonable person. So make sure you've got a kind of clearly thought out strategic response. What if somebody puts some stuff out there online which is untrue, which in this day and age is probably going to happen to you at some point. If, in England and Britain, we have got a tall poppy syndrome. You put the head above the parapet, people love to cut the poppy off. So have that process thought out in advance. So far we have covered time rip-off. Suze, I want to know about the money. We've covered reputation rip-off and time rip-off. We've got pay envelopes for the investor days and for actually joining a group. Reputation rip-offs, we've got proper procedures, complaint procedures and ombudsman. They're great. And then social media, we've got, he made 90 grand, the pillock. There's nothing to complain about. But we've also got, well, am I going to work with a PR company, or have I got like a pre-written thing so that when I'm cross, I can still put a beautifully calm response? Now we're going to come on the real deal, which is how do we stop people ripping you off financially? Because they'll try. But remember, before you get too worried, 98% of people are fabulous. 2% are going to be annoying gits trying to not pay you. And that's what we're going to cover next, both deal packaging and joint ventures. Okay, Suze, you're now coming on to the money. Yes, I am. So there's a few ways people are going to try and rip you off as a deal packager on the cash. The first is they're going to be like trying to go past you directly to the deal. So there's a few ways that you can resolve this, but let me give you a case study. When you work with estate agents, direct to vendor, direct to house, what we used to do was we would find the deal, get it under offer, and then we would release it en masse by text to our investor group, all of whom had paid us £1,000 membership fee. But the only time we changed that scenario was when we went to auction, and we would do pre, during and post auction. So pre means you put in the offer in advance of the auction, and you need to exchange on it before the day of auction. Normally you're exchanging on it about 3 o'clock that day. During is obviously, woohoo, let's buy it. And then post is it didn't sell, let's go to auction, let's go with an investor. So we used to regularly line up deals that we liked, and we would have one deal, one investor. The biggest number of investors we were trying to buy at auction was 30 deals. We had 30 investors lined up for 30 deals in one auction. But typically we would find a deal we liked, think this is a real cracker for whatever reason, and then we would speak privately to individual investors that we knew were really ready to go, had the money, were in the right buying cycle. Would you like to try and buy this pre with us as doing the deal sourcing? Or if we don't get it pre, then we can go to auction and try and buy it. Here's our top price. This is what we think it's worth. Let's talk through the deal with you. Great. So we were going with this one lady to buy a property pre-auction, which meant that on auction day, they would say lot number 75 and it's sold, and everyone go, no. And you'd be like, yes, got it. And we put our bid in and it was accepted. So we let our investor know, it was a lady, we're so pleased this was being accepted. So the next stage is we need to get the legals done and we need to get to exchange before auction, and then you're still buying it under auction terms. So typically in Bristol, it's like within 28 days, it might be within 6 weeks. You have to check your auction terms, okay? And about half an hour later, the auction house phoned us and they were like, we've had an offer. We can't tell you who it is, obviously, because they're not allowed to, but it's £500 more than your offer. Now, that was the giveaway, because who would know we put a certain offer in at a certain price except for our investor? And typically you can think, oh, I'll offer 500 quid more. So if the lady had offered £233 more, or £1,350 more, a random number more, we might not have known. But because it was 500 more, it's like, it's blooming obvious as this blinking woman. And the auction house was saying, well, we don't know this particular investor, but we do know you. So we've advised our client to stick with you because you're very consistent and this person is a complete unknown to us. What they were really saying was, we know it's your investor trying to rip you off and we trust you to follow the process. And so that's what happened. We got the deal. We stuck to our word and worked it through with this lady, but we then ejected her out of our group. We never worked with her again. And we talked privately to a number of people just so they're aware, if they were considering doing any JV with her, that she was a little dodge. So they're going to try and go past you through to the estate agent. I have another example of that. So that was auctions. And the thing that saved it was the good quality relationship. I have an example where somebody went past us to an estate agent and then we changed our contract. Contract, by the way, that you can download from my website, thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk, deal packager contract. I give you loads of bonuses. So go and hop over. We had a chap who was putting together a consortium of investors. In fact, investors I introduced him to. He's no longer in an industry. He's got a very bad reputation. Again, I'll not name names because it's not my style. And he decided that he was going to try and rip us off. He picked my team's brains for a long time on this particular project. It was a development project. He sourced the investors from my room. And then he thought, yeah, I'm gonna try and rip them off. And he tried very, very hard not to pay us the deal packaging fee. So what do you do in that case? You make sure you have a contract that says, in the preceding, if you buy a deal that we have presented to you in the preceding 12 months, you still need to pay us our deal packaging fee. So the person can say, as this guy tried to, you didn't present this deal to me. I found this deal online. It's got nothing to do with you. Tough booby. But the reality is your contract says, if you buy a deal that we present to you in the preceding 12 months and you can prove through your delivery system that the information was delivered to them. So we went through our text system and showed exactly when the text landed and exactly our email system when the emails landed, because your systems can show you that, then legally they have to pay you the deal packaging fee. I then made that person's investors aware that they were being really naughty because, leopards don't change their spots. The investors decided for whatever reason to stick in. I think the kind of lure of money, and maybe they're a little bit inexperienced. And I did hear later on that a number of investors had also been ripped off. So leopards don't change their spots. So that is, they're going to try and cut you out either through auctions or through estate agents. Auctions saved us with the relationship, and estate agents, it's the contract. If we were to go back to the auction lady, what would have happened if she had bought the property with her £500 jump? That's so clever, 500 quid jump. Well, all we would have done, we'd have been irritated, of course, but all we would have done is wait for land registry to show the new owner. It would have been that lady. We would have then turned around to that woman and said, right, here's our contract. Our contract says if you bought a deal from us in the preceding 12 months, guess what? You've got to pay our deal fee. So here is our deal fee. So that's how to prevent yourself being ripped off from somebody that's buying from you and trying to cut you out and going direct. Now let's talk about how to get ripped off once they've got the deal from you and they're at point of payment and they're like, damn, maybe I can delay this payment. And the answer is, no, you can't. Okay, the third way that people are going to try and kind of rip you off is point of payment. So you, in the contract that I've got for you guys, which is on my website, cost me $2,000 from my lawyers. Obviously we sell it for a lot less, thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk. We get paid on exchange. You also always use your lawyers because they understand your deal packaging process. We used investors' lawyers once and we lost the deal. And that was a really great investor that we really liked called Jonathan, who'd loads of money, but the lawyer was too slow. So we're like, no, I'm sorry, from now on, we're always using our lawyers. So what you do when you are helping somebody on the deal packaging side is they maybe not have that much experience of buying houses. So about 10 days in advance of the date that you intend for this deal package to exchange, i.e. they legally have the property, you're going to start saying to them, your bank may have a 10 grand or a 20 grand or a 25 grand limit, and you're going to need to put across the 10% of the exchange contract, whatever it is. So I don't know, say they're getting a house for 400 grand. Well, that's a 20 grand fee for you. They're going to have to put across 10%, which is 40 grand for the deal, plus 20 grand for your fee, because you get paid on exchange. You don't get paid on completion, you get paid on exchange. So they're going to have to put across 60 grand. The chances of them being able to do it on the Friday morning are like almost zilch, right? They may well be working full time, they may have a family, they may have other things going on. You have to do the help for them to kind of, hey, remember to pick up your dirty socks and pay the bill. So about 10 days in advance, you send them your invoice, and you also send the lawyer who is on your panel but is their lawyer now, the invoice. And you pick the phone up and you just babysit, remind them in the sweetest, kindest way. You've got a 60 grand bill coming up in, say, 10 days time. Your bank's probably got some limits. So what you need to do now is transfer to your daily limit so that the money's sat in advance in the lawyer's bank account. And obviously you pick up the phone to the lawyer and say, I'm going to advise them to do this. Normally your lawyer's like, oh, we don't need the money for a bit. And you're like, no. I'm going to get them to do this, because they typically take a little moment, because nobody really likes, that is called investor wobble. Nobody really likes that moment of getting over the line when you hand over all this cash before you've got this a deal and you're like, oh, what am I doing? So you'll just remind them until the point that they've transferred the 10% exchange money, plenty of time, so it's no stress for them, but also your deal packaging fee, which is 5%. So in this case, 20 grand for you and 40 grand to exchange on the property, because it's a 400 grand property, which should be valuing probably about 550, 525, 575, maybe if you're lucky, 600. So for 20 grand, they're getting anything from 150 to 200 grand equity. So it's a pretty good deal for them. The final part is on joint ventures, the same thing. So very simple, joint ventures. If we were to joint venture my New York Cup, what you would normally do is put the property into the joint venture's name. So they own it. You have a restriction, it's called an RX1, so that they can't change at land registry the registration of this property, meaning they can't sell it, they can't refinance it, they can't really kind of do anything with it except until the restriction is lifted. Plus you have a JV agreement. And again, funnily enough, it cost me about 2 grand, and you can get the JV agreements. You can download them from my website, thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk. Because as a deal packager, you will start to move up the value ladder and you'll end up doing some joint ventures with people. There's a higher opportunity for your investors to rip you off. Upon point of sale, there'll always be a few £100 out, because you've got council tax, gas, electricity, and water rates to resolve, and you won't get the final bill. So I've definitely had investors saying, well, I can't pay you the money yet because we don't know what the final bill is. And I go, I hear that. What we're going to do is we're going to have a £500 balancing fund, so we get our profit as legally agreed. You're all very nice about it, but you're not messing. And then there's a £500 balancing fund. I always make it in my favour, so we're £500 up, because I've got the bookkeeper that can then pay them the balance back. I never make it in their favour, because it's a pain in the neck to chase less than 500 quid. It's just such a pain. So I always like, you're going to pay me the value plus probably £500 more, because out of that £500 comes like the gas, the electricity, the council tax, the Wi-Fi, because we're going to do all that paperwork. So that's, and if they then turn around and say, I'm not paying you, you're in proper rip-off time. And at that point, and nobody has, by the way, but what you do have to do a number of times is go, I'm just reminding you that this needs to be paid. And they will push it 2 or 3 times in a polite British way. And you say, no, that's our process. You might even refer to your finance team. That's how the finance team need it to happen. That's what our finance director needs to happen. It has to follow through on the legal agreement. We can't deviate from it. You almost are moving to the computer says no. But instead of saying, listen, stop trying to rip me off, you have that finance team as the third party baddie, or the process as the third party, you're kind of on their side saying, I'm really sorry, we can't do it any other way than the process. And it just means you're not head to head, but you're saying, no, honeybee, don't even try it. If they move to nah, I'm not giving you the money, then this is where your restriction comes in. Remember, you've got an RX1 on it and you've got a legal agreement, and you are not removing, you refuse to sign what's called an RX4, releasing the RX1 until they agree verbally and in writing. I never release joint ventures until they've put in writing, I agree to release the money to Susannah. We got a big bumblebee here, but I'm going to keep chatting to you guys. I hope you can't hear it, but it's massive. I never agree to release an RX4 until I've got in writing on a joint venture, I agree that Susannah or the Good Property Company or whatever the company is going to get the sum of blah, and I authorize you, the lawyer, to transfer it to her upon the sale of the property. Even if I trust them, I need it in writing. So all you say is, golly, and we've had this, by the way, gosh, I'm on your side. The process means that I won't be able to release the RX4 until we've got this in writing, written permission for the lawyer to give us our profit. So I would hate that to happen for you, because with a JV, you're not the one that's paying their interest fees, because their job is to bring the money, whether they bring the money through cash or whether they bring the money through bridging. And if they bring the money through bridging, that's kind of almost more useful to you. You say, golly, I'm really sorry, because if you're unable to put that in writing, then our process means I can't lift the RX1, which means it can't be sold. And what that means for you, because at this point they're being total gits, so you need to put the sting in the tail. What that means for you is you're going to be paying more interest on your bridging, and of course that's not part of our cost. I would hate for that to happen to you. I've had to say those exact words to a couple of pillocks who were trying to rip us off. And so by framing it, and I learned all this behavior through tenants, because we've had thousands of tenants, we've had hundreds of investors. So I practiced on tenants first. By framing it on, I'm unable to, the process is that I don't release the RX1 until I get in writing from you to the lawyer, I authorize the release of profit of blah, 50, 100 grand to Susannah. It is going to hurt you, not me. Golly, I'd hate for you to have to pay more interest. It's like £890 a month. Gosh, that'd be a shame if that came off your eventual profit. Or I'd hate for the deal to fall down and we have to find another buyer, and that might take another 3 months, and I'd hate for that to cost you another 3 grand. Point out to them that it is not a beneficial route for them to take. It will surely damage them, and you are fully legally tied up, and you will not release the RX1 with the RX4 until they've put in writing, I authorize the release of the profit to Susannah with the £500 balancing fee, where she pays the gas, the electricity, the council tax, the water rates, then pays me back a couple £100 difference. So we have summarized. How do you not get ripped off as a deal packager by your investors with time? How do you not get ripped off as a deal packager by reputation? Which, it'll happen because you've put your head above the parapet. And then how do you not get ripped off but for deal packagers who refuse to pay you, but also for JV partners who refuse to pay you? Hope that's useful. But before you kind of go out and think, is this deal packaging malarkey worthwhile? Yes, it's how I became financially free. Because I built up enough money to buy my property portfolio to be financially free for the rest of my life. And before you think, oh man, I got to work with shifty investors, guys, only 2% of them are shifty. 98% are adorable and an absolute blessing and joy to work with. So all we're doing is closing that gap that those shifty little 2%ers can beat it, and you get paid. Now, if this video has been useful, subscribe, like, don't miss out. And I'll see you soon. Bye just now. Sourcing discounted deals, it is the basis of all property wealth. I have written a pack for you guys. You can download it right now. 45 million quid's worth of property, agreed sourcing price for 30 million quid. All that information in that pack.